Mercedes have risen from the dead this season as the Silver Arrows team won 3 out of the last 4 races on tracks that basically have suited the Red Bull much more in the previous years than them. But the upgrades in Spa were not the last word we see from the Brackley side, because they promise much more in Zandvoort this week. We can safely say that Mercedes are back in contention for the spot, so much so that maybe Hamilton could regret leaving them. Mercedes always believed that its W15 Formula One car had the potential to be fast, and was actually surprised that it couldn't perform up to expectations earlier in the season. The German team entered F1's summer break with 3 wins out of the last 4 races, as George Russell secured victory at the Austrian Grand Prix, while Lewis Hamilton won in Great Britain and Belgium. This success followed a series of upgrades around the Monaco Grand Prix that improved the car's balance, something the team had been striving for. Trackside engineering director Andrew Chauvelin attributes the team's progress to a gradual understanding of how to unlock the potential they always knew the car possessed. It wasn't so much a breakthrough moment, he said. I think we always thought this car, on its day, it seemed to be quick, but being able to do that across the whole weekend was a bit more of a challenge for us in the early part of the year. It's now more usable. That's not one development. That's lots of things that we've done to try to get on top of those issues. As I said, we were surprised we weren't quicker at the start. We thought we'd made a good car, and underneath it was a good car. It just had some problems that we had to get on top of. Now we're seeing the result of that hard work. But Mercedes are not at the level of Red Bull just yet, and this is what Chauvelin emphasised. The tracks where Mercedes struggles the most are those that put a lot of pressure on the rear tyres, especially in hot conditions. For example, they had quite a tough time in Spielberg, but in Budapest the gap was smaller, which shows they have made a big improvement in performance. At Silverstone they were very competitive, which is a good sign that they're on the right track. Every team is constantly working to improve their cars, and if you don't make progress even for just one weekend, you'll fall behind, because everyone is pushing hard. When it comes to wind tunnel testing, Mercedes can't predict too far ahead. They can only see about 6 weeks into the future. The big turning point for Mercedes was when they introduced a new front wing at Monaco. This really brought the W15 back to life and allowed the drivers to start getting good results. The wing was something they expected to introduce during the season, and once they put it on George's car, they realised the car could get even better. From that point on, there was something new at every track. In the first few races of the season, the car's performance was really sensitive to even small changes in track conditions, but once they fixed those issues, things got a lot easier. Another issue the team had is with tyre temperature. The German manufacturer has noted a trend this year where its W15 car shines in cooler conditions, but if temperatures go up, it struggles more compared to the opposition. The team suspects that this is a consequence of the car putting more heat into its rear tyres, which is good for them getting in the right operating window in the cold, but has consequences if they fall out the other end and get too hot on sunny days. Mercedes thinks finding a solution to the issue is not straightforward, and it could take several development steps before the outfit gets itself to a place it's happy with. The thing is, there will be a few more races this year where the temperature will be extremely high, namely Singapore and Qatar. It's still unknown whether the improved Mercedes is not situational, meaning it really does perform well in cooler temperatures. I hope it isn't. I hope it's a generalised improvement, as that spices up the competition, and it's therefore good to see Hamilton back in the mix. Certainly, he still knows how to win races. Whether his ultimate pace is still there, well, I'm not convinced about that yet either. But it does look as though Mercedes finally seems to have a model for the ground effect era. Regardless of the ultimate performance of their car being situational or not, they are able to better predict its performance, as stated in the article, arrive at a base setup that is sound. Previously, their understanding and setup window was so narrow they couldn't maintain the car's performance. Chauvelin thinks that progress with its car ramped up once Mercedes had a proper understanding of what was needed to make it quick. It is just a feature of how well the organisation's working, he said. A lot of success in F1 is about learning and it's about ideas. At the moment, the rate of learning has been high this year and the generation of ideas has been good. Ultimately, that's where all the new parts and new developments come from. And this was so surprising even to Hamilton, who has gone on record to say that he didn't expect them to compete against Red Bull and Ferrari this year. No fewer than 7 drivers, Max Verstappen, Carlos Sainz, Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc, George Russell, Hamilton and Oscar Piastri have won a Grand Prix in 2024 so far, highlighting just how competitive the sport currently is. It also brings back memories of the 2012 season when the opening 7 races yielded 7 different winners, including Hamilton himself. And the outgoing Mercedes man described the situation as great for F1 as a whole. It's really fantastic, I think, for the sport to be having such close teams and drivers, he commented. The pedigree of drivers at the top today are really elite and amazing. We didn't expect to be competing with the McLarens or the Red Bulls at this point in the season, with how we started off. So for us to now have closed up and it's going to be one hell of a second half of the season for sure. The big lead Red Bull once had is gone. McLaren's car is now on par with the RB20, which is becoming increasingly unpredictable. And while the RB20 is still strong, its volatility means that even if Perez performs well in the final 10 rounds, Red Bull could still be in a tight battle with McLaren. There's also a wild card in play, a potential saviour for Red Bull and a threat to McLaren's hopes of winning their first constructors' title since 1998. If McLaren's rise has been impressive, Mercedes' recovery is just as remarkable. With Mercedes back in the mix, the fight for wins and podiums now involves 3 teams. Whether Ferrari will join them remains to be seen, but Mercedes' resurgence poses a serious risk to McLaren's championship dreams. With 2 wins in the last 3 rounds, Mercedes' return to form makes the battle for wins a 3-way fight, something that might actually help Red Bull more than McLaren. That's because if Mercedes consistently scores strong points, it maintains the status quo. However, there is another way to look at it. Mercedes could actually hurt Red Bull by getting between them and McLaren, reducing Red Bull's chances to minimise the points gap on weekends when McLaren is strong. But unless this happens in a very specific way, which it could, interestingly enough, even if Mercedes splits the 2 teams, if McLaren is generally stronger over the final 10 rounds, they would still beat Red Bull to the title. On the other hand, if Red Bull has the edge and Mercedes gets in McLaren's way, it would help Red Bull keep their championship lead. So with a 42-point gap between the 2 leaders, Mercedes being in the mix might actually help Red Bull hold on to their title rather than helping McLaren catch up. Ultimately, Mercedes could end up blocking McLaren's path and handing Red Bull their 3rd consecutive constructors' title. Despite the setbacks at Spa, Mercedes is confident in the potential of their updates. The team has been investigating the issues and believes they have identified the root causes. We have been working on understanding exactly what went wrong, Chauvelin said. We are quite confident that we can reintroduce the Spa update at Zandvoort. Mercedes' decision to give the unused Spa updates another chance demonstrates their commitment to continuous improvement. However, Silver Arrows fans will have justified concern over witnessing their team chase an unsuccessful side podless aero design for far too long. As the team prepares for the next race, all eyes will be on whether these adjustments can enhance their performance and keep them competitive on the grid. With 14 of 24 scheduled races completed, Mercedes sit 4th in the constructors' standings on 266 points behind Ferrari, McLaren and Red Bull, while Hamilton is 6th in the drivers' battle, 127 points behind leader Verstappen, and Russell is 8th. Could Mercedes be back in the mix even for P2, if not for P1? Let us know what you're thinking down in the comments below, and we'll see you soon in the next video.